Hi all and welcome to our beginner tips for Dune Awakening.
In this video, we want to share a few tips that might be helpful if you're just getting started with the game, are still only a few hours in, or are planning to play Dune Awakening.
While the game does a really good job at guiding you through the essential gameplay and provides tutorial hints, it's easy to get overwhelmed when trying to survive, and some things are easy to miss. In addition to our tips here, we also have guides and tips specifically around the topics of early survival, as well as questions around server, professions and faction choices. By the way, if our content has helped you in the past or you simply enjoy watching our videos, please consider subscribing or becoming a member of our channel. And if you haven't bought the game yet, you can also support us by buying it via the link in our description. Our first tip is about easily finding friends. When selecting a server in the beginning of the game, you can see existing Steam friends that also play the game. This makes it easier to select the same server, or siege as the game calls it, and join your friends. Later, if you've befriended additional players in-game, you can also see in-game friends on the server list. The same goes for the social menu in-game. Existing Steam friends also show up there, and you can easily add them to your in-game friends list, group or guild. Something to keep in mind when choosing your starter class. While it's possible to unlock all professions in-game, you won't be able to reach all the trainers in the early game zones. If you're really keen on playing as Swordmaster or Bene Gesserit, we recommend choosing either of them as your starter profession, as you'll only be able to find the corresponding trainers much later in-game. We also recommend to not choose Trooper when starting out, as the trainer for this class can be found within the beginner zone. When you create your character, you'll have an option to either follow a journey that guides your progress and what you unlock in which order, or you can select to play with an unlocked research menu instead, meaning you can spend your points as you wish without having to complete certain steps in a specific order. If you are a first-time player or new to survival games, we highly recommend to go with the locked option, as it makes your first experience a lot more streamlined. There isn't really anything you lose out on. In fact, you might even progress more efficiently if you're spending your points as suggested. And as soon as you have reached the early game and learned all the basics, your research menu will be unlocked as well. While many of you will enjoy building a base, and the game asks you to do so early on, we recommend keeping your starter base at a minimum and simply focus on all journey-related tasks that lead you to the next zone, Vermilius Gap. Once you have arrived there, the game will ask you to abandon your starter base as part of your journey, so any effort in building something elaborate or more storage and stations than you need initially would be wasted. Rather focus on building once you have left Hagabase South. Getting familiar and used to the build menu can take some time, and it's easy to miss several menu options. Initially, you have some favorites auto-selected, which include some building basics for your base. What you see listed here can also be changed by selecting your own personal favorites. By default, you can also see some subcategories here, like utilities, fabricators, refineries and storage, and you can navigate between them by using your Q and E keys. However, should you have used the piece picker option while building, this will automatically change your build menu to just show building pieces. To access the menu with the other subcategories again, you need to press R, where you can access additional categories and sets, including those you have purchased from traders or unlocked otherwise. Here as well, you can navigate between subcategories with Q and E, and between different categories with Z and C. To add or remove items from the favorites menu, use F when a piece is selected. Once you have learned how to craft your first sandbike, we highly recommend researching the schematic for a vehicle backup tool and craft one. This tool will be your best friend, as it can safely store and restore your sandbike and later your ornithopter at any time. So if you're out adventuring and don't find a safe space to park, you simply back up your bike. The only condition for it to work is that your bike storage, if you have attached one, is empty. If you've just started out, it can be tricky knowing where good spots for building your base are. Ideally, you want to have key locations you visit frequently in close proximity and be not too far off from resources. It can also be helpful to build next to a dew flower field, especially in the beginning, when you're still ramping up your water production. In Haga Basin South, we like to build somewhere not far from the trade post. Anywhere on this large rock formation, or alternatively east of the trade post close to the first ecolab. In Vermilius Gap, we usually stick to the eastern map. The area around the trade post is a popular build spot, but can get crowded. Personally, we prefer to build on the eastern side of the large rock formation here. Close to the hammer, it's a central location from where you can reach the trade post, resources, ecolabs and many contracts fairly conveniently. Pretty early in game, your journey will task you with finding and completing your first trial of Akkel, and there will be several more down the line. We recommend doing the first 2 trials as early as you can, as they unlock schematics that are vital for your survival and progression. When you die, you usually have several options where to respawn. For one, you have your home base respawn, which is the base you have set as your respawn location. When building your first base, it will automatically be set as such, but if you build additional bases, you need to go to the subfief console and manually select it. Doing so will also remove the respawn location at your old base, as you can only select one base location. Additionally, you can also select your vehicle as respawn location, but this only works as long as it's not stored in a vehicle backup tool. If you need additional backup, you can also craft respawn beacons and place them somewhere close to where you think you might need them. However, you can only have one respawn beacon at a time. And lastly, the game usually gives you the option to spawn at a checkpoint. This could for instance be at the entrance of a testing station you visited last. Now, it's easy to forget to set a new base as your respawn location, so make sure to always go to the subfief and do so as soon as it's built. The same goes for when you're playing together with someone else and sharing a base. It's really easy to forget to bind to the location your friend has built. We forgot that more than once, and it's no fun to find yourself spawning somewhere in the desert, far, far away. If you do a lot of farming, you're likely going to make use of additional storage you can attach to your vehicle. Now, unloading your loot and resources after a bigger haul can be tedious, but you can actually access your vehicle storage directly from the storage containers in your base, as long as you're parked in relative proximity. Simply open your storage container and select a vehicle from the drop-down menu above your inventory. Yes, it was a relief when we figured that one out. One thing that can be a bit confusing in the beginning is the fact that there are no name tags for other players. While there is an option to enable indicators for party members under the display settings, it's still easy to mistake guildies or other players for NPCs once in a while. There are 2 tips to identify other players that are not in your group. If you have a weapon equipped, then you see a green marker if your target is a fellow guild member. You don't even have to aim at the player with your weapon. Simply targeting them with your HUD dot or reticle will do the trick. When targeting other players and NPCs, you will generally see a white crosshair, and the design of the crosshair changes based on your weapon. However, you can always tell if it's an NPC by the extra details around the center of the crosshair. To see a player's name and get interact options up, you need to holster your weapon and be relatively close to the player when targeting them. While leveling, you earn intel points that can be spent on schematics in your research menu. However, you can also gain additional intel points by finding them in outposts. You recognize outposts by this icon on the map, and if you hover over it, a small pop-up will tell you if and how many intel items can be found there. Picking up intel gives you different amounts of intel depending on the area, but in the starter and early game zones it's usually 3 to 5 points. As you explore the game, you will be picking up more and more contracts, and while you can only track one contract on screen in addition to your journey, your map will generally display markers for all of them. What you might easily miss though is that contract locations are also visible on the compass, where you can see the distance to the target, and here comes the tip. You can also see a little arrow next to the distance, when the target is either above or below you. With quite a bit of verticality going on in the game, this knowledge can come in very handy. So in case you're lost, you know that you have to either reach a higher location or maybe search underground. Unique crafting schematics can typically be found in special loot containers in testing stations and large shipwrecks. But you can also find these schematics in select outposts, caves and a few other hidden and special locations. In the early to mid-game, we recommend to not holding on to these schematics for too long, as you will outlevel the items faster than you think. The tier of items is usually tied to the area they are found in, so there's no need to collect schematics from the early zones as they will be of little use later on. Simply learn and craft them whenever you can. On that topic, crafting unique schematics requires spice-infused dust of the corresponding item tier, which generally can also be found in the bigger chests that drop the schematics. So if you need more of that resource, farm these chests. Finally, keep in mind that learning a unique schematic usually allows you to craft the item only once. If you need another, you will need to find and learn the recipe again. Our last tip is nothing vital, but definitely good to know. You can hide your headgear. Yes, wearing a still suit or other armor that typically comes with a full helmet can be cool for a while, but sometimes you simply want to see the character you spent so much time creating. To hide your headgear, either deselect the show helmet option under your gameplay settings, or press D when in your inventory and then deselect the option below your gear. And that's it for our first and certainly not last tips for Dune Awakening. As always, if you like to see more content from us and want to support our channel, please consider giving us a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe or become a member of our channel.